check your brightness on your TV, okay? Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. Psst. Crue Trime. My name is Sarah. My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day on purpose. And I put on my makeup at the same time, so if that sounds like fun to you, you're in the right place. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification, and then you will never miss one of my terrible stories. Today's terrible story takes us to the first state in the United States to elect a woman to the United States Congress. How many times did I say state just now? It's also the home of the state with the most variety of land mammals in North America. It's big sky country. We are headed to...
The one! The only! Hannah Montana! Woo!
Nobody was talking to you, ma'am. We're going to Montana. And this is the story of Wayne Nance. A few things. Number one, I don't talk about the makeup as I'm putting it on, so if you're interested to know what I'm using, look down in the description box. I will link everything that is still available for purchase, and if it's not available because it's old, I will link something similar, just because I like ya. Number two, I have seen more than one comment about it being too bright. Everything's too bright. Yes, I'm using a lot of lights, but what I noticed this week when I was visiting my friend, the brightness on her TV is just really bright. It doesn't look like that for me at my house and on my computer and all that stuff when I'm editing. So if I look really crazy bright, check your brightness on your TV, okay? One more thing. Look at, I finally joined the sheep and I got an Apple Watch. Can you see? It's a Minnie Mouse.
It's 6:26. Good evening.
On April 11th, 1974, Donna Pounds of Missoula, Montana, had been out running errands with a friend and arrived home, mid-afternoon. Donna worked part-time in a Christian bookstore, and her husband of 22 years, Harvey, sold men's shoes and clothing at one of the local high-end stores. They both had attended Prairie Bible Institute in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, but Harvey was really the one with dreams of a priesthood. So while Donna raised the kids, Harvey was a church deacon at Bethel Baptist Church in Missoula, and he also had a religious radio show. Harvey and their oldest daughter, Karen, who was 20 years old at the time, were both at work, and the younger daughter, 12-year-old Kathy, was at school. When Harvey got home for the day around 6 p.m., he found Kathy and her friend in the living room in front of the TV just lounging. Well, Harvey started down the hallway and he came to Kathy's bedroom first. He went to her bed and he saw the white, it looked like clothesline that was tied to all four corners of the bed with like little loops in each end. He wasn't really quite sure what to make of it, but he just kept going down the hall. When he got to Karen's bed, he saw the same thing and he was getting uneasy. When he went to the main bedroom, he found even more white clothesline tied to all four corners of the bed, and he saw blood and an empty gun holster just lying on the bed. Something was really wrong. Well, he didn't see his wife Donna anywhere, and he was so freaked out he wanted to get Kathy and her friend out of the house. So he did. He took them to the neighbor's house across the street, and then he went back inside the house to try to find Donna. He looked all through the house until he finally got down to the basement where he found Donna. She was under the stairs, nude, and she was slumped over like on all fours. The attacker had shot her 5 times in the back of her head. He also had left the handgun sticking out of her. You know where. Shock value. Well, investigators got to the house, of course, and they collected whatever evidence they could. They found a bloody latex glove in the backyard. They also recovered from Donna, but Harvey clarified that they had, done the sex the night before. They were married. Well, this was 1974, so DNA profiling was not a thing yet, but they did find a pubic hair. Wow, I'm like really going in there today. They found a short and curly on the bed. That was not a match for Harvey. The biggest piece of evidence was that whoever attacked Donna seemed to know where Harvey's gun was. Yeah, I just talked for a solid 5 minutes, not recording, so. the gun. So apparently the gun was kept in a cabinet that was like hidden compartments that you would have to know where to like push on it for it to open up to get the gun out. Also, the police would later say that they believe that whoever attacked Donna was likely already in the house hiding, waiting for her to come home. Because remember, there was clothesline, like rope, on each one of the beds, but he had only attacked Donna. He had also worn latex gloves and brought that clothesline to the scene with him. Then he used it to tie her up, sexually assault her, and then he took her down to the basement to shoot her to death. So the Missoula County Sheriff's Department began their investigation, and of course, Harvey was their main suspect. The husband is always the first suspect. But turns out Mr. Holy Churchman was actually having an affair, allegedly. The woman was someone that Harvey met at Bethel Baptist Church, and she verified that they were getting to know each other, but nothing physical had happened yet. Harvey was also very cooperative. He even sat for a polygraph exam, which he passed. Well, remember, Harvey had that religious radio show. You know, he had these dreams of being like a church figure. And he wasn't just casually religious. He spoke often about marshaling his forces in Missoula. So when Donna was murdered, his devout followers blamed the devil. They thought that Satanists had done it to silence Harvey, and he fed into this mindset. He told people that the ropes found in the house were symbols of the Salem witch trial nooses, and that a devil sign of some sort had been painted on a wall in Donna's blood. Similar symbols were like cut into her body. None of that was true. Why was he saying that? When investigators canvassed the neighborhood, 3 separate people said that they had seen a local teenager, 18-year-old high school senior Wayne Nance, leaving the Pounds backyard that day. One woman said that he was carrying a black gym bag. So the west side of Missoula is very rural, and all of these people like grew up together. You know, nobody knew any strangers. So they recognized Wayne Nance, who was actually really good friends with the Pounds' 18-year-old son Kenny, who had recently joined the army. So Wayne and Kenny were friends. You know, he had spent plenty of time in the Pounds' home. He knew where Harvey kept the handgun, and he had even fired it before. The investigators just were having a hard time, you know, finding a motive for an 18-year-old to commit such a crime. So, who was Wayne Nance? I'm glad you asked. Wayne Nathan Nance was born on October 18th, 1955 in Missoula, Montana, to Charlene and George Nance. When Charlene and George got together, she was 16 and he was 24. Now, I realize for the time that was pretty normal, but dude. Their first child was a girl they named Desiree. She was born in 1953. Then 2 years later, Wayne was born. Then they later had 2 more children, William and Vita. They lived in the Elmar trailer village in Missoula. George was a long-haul trucker, and Charlene was a waitress. With George gone most of the time, Charlene was home with 4 kids, struggling. She drank a lot, and the kids were often left to fend for themselves from a very young age. Despite that, the Nance children were, you know, normal, nice kids. As Wayne got older, he got darker. The kids tried to talk to their dad, George, about their weird brother, but he wasn't having it. You know, he just said, boys will be boys. That phrase makes me want to punch. Anyways, I'm not surprised that that was the viewpoint, and also he was physically abusive to the kids, so there's that. Wayne was actually a very good student, and he excelled in class, and he had plenty of friends. And regardless of how well he did in class, he was still kind of always in trouble at school and at home. The trailer village had an incinerator that the residents would use to burn their trash, and a neighbor once saw Wayne toss a box of kittens into it. Rage. Okay, so when Wayne started at Sentinel High School, his friends noticed that he had became involved in weird things, like occult things. He started talking about Satanism and how he wanted to sacrifice someone before he turned 19. I should do a whole video on Satanism, you guys, because it's not what you think it is. Anyways, By the time Wayne was a senior in high school, he had amassed a huge collection of knives and was even bringing them to school. Were they allowed? No. Did he care? No. Okay, so now we're kind of caught up to the beginning of the story, the murder of Donna Pounds. So the day after that murder in April, senior high school student Wayne Nance, 18 years old, branded a pentagram onto his forearm using a coat hanger. He also told his good friends Bill Van Canagan and Ryan Ushijima that he killed Donna and that he did it so that he could become a third-degree witch. A third-degree witch. Bill and Ryan took that little confession to the school principal, who didn't really believe them at first. He just encouraged the boys to, go speak to the police. But they were terrified to do it because Wayne told them that if they said anything, he would kill them, and they totally believed him. Okay, so the police actually did interview Wayne early on in the investigation into Donna's murder, and he said that he stayed home from school that day, a shaky alibi at best. They were able to obtain a search warrant, and they found and seized a black gym bag, like the one that the neighbor had described seeing him carrying that day. Inside of the gym bag were many .22 caliber bullet casings, the same kind of bullets that were used to kill Donna Pounds. They also found a few other things that, circumstantially could link him to the crime, but nothing of substance. They had also lost some evidence, which wasn't great. Remember I told you about that pube they found? Lost it. Pretty soon the case just kind of fizzled. Well, Wayne Nance graduated from high school on time in 1974, and that June, on June 19th, he enlisted in the United States Navy. Later on, investigators would say that they suspect that he committed some other crimes while he was traveling for the military, but nothing stuck to him. 2 years later, June 1976, the Missoula County Court convened a grand jury for 3 murders. Donna Pounds and 2 others. Wayne Nance was flown in from San Diego, California, where he was doing some kind of Navy training. He spent 7 hours on the stand being questioned about his shaky alibi that they totally disproved. They asked him all about what he had told his friends about killing Donna Pounds. He gave no shits at all. Could not be bothered. So the grand jury was made up of 11 jurors, and in order for the case to proceed to the next steps, like to go to trial, they had to get a majority rule decision. So 8 of the 11 needed to agree, and they couldn't get there. So nothing came of it. Oh, and by the way, the other 2 murders mentioned, in addition to Donna Pounds, they were actually eventually solved many years later, not committed by Wayne Nance. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. So on November 29th, 1977, Wayne was discharged from the Navy for misconduct. He apparently was stealing things and, doing drugs. It was a problem. He ended up moving back home with his parents in Missoula, and he got a job as a bouncer at the cabin bar where his mom also worked sometimes as a cocktail waitress. For a couple years, he tried out the college thing and went to Seattle, Washington, but it didn't stick, and he ended up coming back home. Fast forward a little bit more, February 27th, 1980, the body of a young woman was found by a construction crew near Beavertail State Park, 26 miles from Missoula. In July 1978, Devonna Nelson had disappeared from the streets of Seattle. She would actually not be positively identified until 1985. But at the time, because there was so many Jane Does, they would name them for the area that they were found. So she was nicknamed Betty Beavertail. I mean, it kind of sounds adorable. Is that bad? That woman was confirmed later to be 15-year-old Devonna Nelson. Now, they can't really confirm for sure if she was one of Wayne Nance's victims, but he was in Seattle when she was, and when she was found, she had 2 .32 caliber bullets in her head. So by the summer of 1984, Wayne had started working for Conlon's Furniture as a delivery driver. He met a young woman at a truck stop, and he introduced her to his friends as Robin from Texas. Robin briefly lived with Wayne, but at some point in the fall of 1984, she supposedly left for home. On December 24th, 1984, the badly decomposed body of a nude woman was found by a wildlife photographer. She had been partially buried and had 3 .23 caliber bullet. I said 22 caliber bullets. Then I said 32, and now it says 23. It's 22. I don't know what I'm talking about. Bullet casings that matched. Wow. Sorry, I was confused. I misspoke. She had been partially buried and had 3 .22 caliber bullets in the back of her head. When the body was discovered, there wasn't anything with her to identify her, so she was nicknamed Debbie Deer Creek because of how close she was found to the Deer Creek drainage basin. So the police later determined her to be 16-year-old Marcella Marcy Bachman, but at the time she died, she was known as Robin. Marcy had run away due to family issues when she was only 15, and her brother Derek spent his whole adult life looking for her. He thought that maybe she had supported herself as a sex worker and had perhaps fallen prey to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. So he contacted the police department and submitted his DNA so that they could compare it against the victims that they had in the CODIS database, the combined DNA index system. Many, many years later, in 2006, Derek was actually shown a photograph of his sister with Wayne Nance. On September 11th, 1985, a hunter found the skeletal remains of a woman near Crystal Creek, Montana. She had been shot twice in her skull. There were 2 .22 caliber bullet casings still in her skull. She had actually been discovered less than 3 miles from where Marcy/Robin's body was found, and this one was nicknamed, you guessed it, Christy Crystal Creek. So her remains were actually only recently identified. May of 2021. Her name was Janet L. Lucas, and she was 23 years old and had a 5-year-old son when she was killed. The theory is that she had gone to the cabin bar, and because Wayne worked the door, he might have looked at her driver's license and mentioned that they had the same birthday, and then took it from there. Okay, I'm gonna do eyeliner, and I can't do it on camera because I can't talk and do it at the same time. I'm such an amateur. BRB. I am Amy Winehouse today. On December 12th, 1985, Michael and Teresa Shook were at their home in Hamilton, Montana, about 50 miles south of Missoula. They had 4 young children, all under age 10. Teresa was in the kitchen making some holiday cookies, and Mike was just hanging out watching TV. At around 8 p.m., there was a knock at the door. It was Wayne Nance. He was the delivery driver for Conlin Furniture. Once he arrived, he had other things in mind. Wayne Nance pulled a gun on them. Well, Mike tried to wrestle it away, and after a struggle, the gun went off and Teresa had been shot in the leg. Wayne tied up Mike. It was a mess. The kids were all locked away in their bedrooms, and Teresa was taken to the main bedroom and restrained. After fatally stabbing Mike in the chest, Wayne raped Teresa, and then he stabbed her in the chest as well. A neighbor had stepped outside around 10 p.m. to gather some firewood, and he saw headlights leaving the Shook residence. However, another resident saw the same vehicle return 2 hours later, around midnight. It was Wayne, and this time he decided he was going to rifle through their belongings, stealing whatever he could. I guess he just wanted some souvenirs or something. He took a 12-inch plaster statue of an elk from the living room. Weird. And a handmade stag-handled hunting knife with a tanned leather sheath and Mike's collection of silver dollars. Then he lit some furniture on fire and then stopped the hands of the kitchen clock to midnight, I guess to signify what time it was. So weird. Then he walked out and made sure that the door was locked behind him, knowing that the children were alive inside. What he didn't realize was that Mike had made the place completely airtight, so when he closed that front door, it shut off the oxygen that was needed to really fuel the fire to get the whole house to go up. But the fumes from the burning furniture, the rubber seats, the foam, I guess, gave off some pretty terrible fumes, cyanide gas, in fact. Well, the kids did try to escape from the house, but they eventually passed out from the fumes. The next morning around 8 a.m., a neighbor actually came by the house to drop off his son for a play date, and he found the kids. He called for help, and the kids were miraculously still alive. After being treated at the hospital, all of them ended up making a full recovery. So Wayne Nance is on a spree. You know, every couple of years he goes crazy, and the next couple of years, no exception. Fast forward to September 3rd, 1986. Chris and Doug Wells returned home after having dinner with some friends. Chris had gone to school for interior design, and she was actually a manager at Conlin's furniture store. Doug was a gunsmith, and he had his own company where he repaired and sold firearms. Wayne works for Conlin Furniture, and he was apparently obsessed with Chris. Chris had even said that Wayne had gotten to a point where he was just really creepy. He would draw her like pictures, and they would sometimes be really weird and explicit, like definitely over the line. Okay, so when Chris and Doug got home, they saw a truck parked near the house, and it was weird. You know, it kind of bothered Doug. So Chris went inside, and Doug went outside to check out the truck. When he got close to it, he could see someone, you know, in the driver's seat kind of slumped over the wheel. So when he went back inside, he told Chris that it looked like it was just somebody who needed to sleep it off. So later on, when he went outside to take the trash down to the curb, he noticed that the truck was gone. He saw somebody like kind of hiding near the bushes. So he called out, "Who's there?" The person popped up and was like, "It's Wayne from Conlin's Furniture." Doug's like, "Well, what the hell are you doing here?" Well, Wayne stammers a second, and he's like, I saw something out here. Doug turned to go back in the house to get his flashlight so he could check out whatever the hell Wayne was talking about. And as he turned to go inside, he felt a terrible blow to the back of his head. He landed on the floor of the living room with Wayne up standing above him, crazy-eyed, and he was holding like this terrible-looking homemade billy club. Bizarre. Well, they scrambled around on the ground, not really like making sounds, like not yelling, but like lots of thuds and scuffling sounds happening. And Chris was like, "What is going on down there?" So she came downstairs to see this crazy scene. In the scuffle, Wayne was able to pull a firearm from his pocket. Wayne was just like totally nuts, crazed. He demanded money. He was pacing around wildly in the house. He pulled out a length of like white cord clothesline, and he handed some to Chris and told her to tie up Doug, hands and feet. Then Wayne tied up Chris. So then Chris is kind of directing him around the house to places where he could find some money. After digging up like $100 or so, he starts asking for like phone numbers of their friends. And I mean, that part doesn't make sense. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, start calling them? That's weird. Anyway, so I guess he was ready to leave, but he decided he needed to separate Chris and Doug so that they couldn't help each other. You know, it'd be harder to get free, and then that would give him, Wayne, a head start. So he took Chris to the main bedroom and tied her to the bed, and then he took Doug to the basement and tied him to a post. Just when Doug is ready to like slide down the post to the floor, he feels Wayne hitting them with the billy club like 3 more times. Doug's restraints weren't really like tight enough, so he was able to kind of partially move out of the way. That angered Wayne, and he threatened to shoot Doug if he kept trying to get away, so Doug complied and Wayne tightened up the line. For close to the next hour, Wayne was going back and forth between Chris upstairs and Doug down in the basement, ranting about things that made no damn sense, likely working up the nerve to probably rape Chris and kill them both. So while this is happening, Chris and Doug were loosening their ropes. Well, eventually, Wayne had gone downstairs and he stabbed Doug in the chest with like a large knife, like an 8-inch knife. Then he wiped that blood on Doug's pants. Doug would later say, spoiler alert, he lived, but Doug would say that really pissed him off. Understandable. Bloodstains are hard to remove. Also, like, somebody's gonna stab you and then wipe your blood off on your pants? Rude. Anyways, so Wayne went back up to Chris after that. Doug, it took him a couple minutes because at this point now he's dealing with like a collapsed lung and, he's bleeding. He was able to get himself free from the restraints. What Wayne didn't know was that Doug was a professional gun expert and there was a rifle within arm's reach in the basement that he very quickly put back together. And losing blood quickly, he grabbed the rifle, loaded it with the one bullet that he had around, and headed upstairs. At the top of the stairs, he shot Wayne as he came out of the main bedroom. Then Wayne started to crawl backward toward the bedroom. Doug followed, beating the shit out of him with that rifle until it fell apart. Now in the bedroom and in the corner, he was in range of Chris, who'd gotten one arm and leg undone, so she started punching and kicking the shit out of him. Well, at some point, Wayne got a hold of his gun and fired, but it went up into the ceiling. The second shot hit Doug's knee and exited just below his crotch, and he said that woke him right up. The last shot was fired when Doug swung the rifle, and it also hit the lamp, so the room went dark. When he was able to get back over to the other side of the room and hit the light switch to turn on the overhead light, Doug realized that when Wayne fired that last shot, it went into his own head. So now Wayne is clearly incapacitated. Chris called 911. They were all taken to St. Patrick's Hospital, and Wayne did not survive. Well, after the story about the Welleses and the connection to Conlon's furniture was on the news, Bob Shook, Mike Shook's dad, called the investigators in Missoula and asked them to look into the statue of the elk and the stag-handled hunting knife that had been taken the night that Mike and Teresa were killed. So those two items had actually been handcrafted by Teresa's sister, so they were one of a kind, unique, an indisputable piece of evidence that would definitely connect Wayne Nance to the crime scene. And that's exactly what they did. Wayne Nance, the nutso, actually gifted that elk statue to his own father for Christmas.
Oh, hell no!
He kept the knife for himself. I mean, can you even? So Wayne Nance never actually stood trial for any of his crimes, and nor do we really know how many people he terrorized, but what goes around came around for his ass. And that is the story of Wayne Nance. Again, if you want to know any of the products that I used today for this look, just look down in the description box. Everything is linked if it's still available. We are almost done with the terrible tour of the United States. We only have a couple states left, so we got to go out strong and terrible. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on most of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! Shit.
Oh, she has a dog.
Yeah, she got a dog. She got a Saint Berdoodle.
What does that look like?
Huge. Why is my nose running? Why did I leave my camera on just now? I don't know. Wow, those wings are not even. The struggles of having wrinkly eyelids. Oh great, Goose is down here to poop. Really appreciate it. Whoa, not the principal. Not the principal. What am I talking about? Where is my eyeshadow primer?